gonna break your heart. Where they are, they leave you second guessing exactly what you did. Ooh, having kids. Then the Genghis Khan think that they know everything, and they can't get their pants back on. The family in the picture ain't exactly what it is. Ooh, having kids. Well, kiss goodbye to the fear that you might never worry about a thing. 'Cause it's good, but it's hard.
Piece of your heart breaks off and grows some wings.
One more kiss, please, Daddy, before you say goodnight.
The way she keeps on smiling when you walk her down the aisle. You'll take every heartache, 'cause it don't get better than this. Ooh, having kids. Ooh, having kids. And ooh, having kids.
Thank you. So tonight we are a band of Moody's. All of us are Moody grads, which is really fun. Yeah, so we have Nate on the end. We have Michael here.
Should we rep our years, maybe?
Sure. Nate.
2014. Class of 2018.
I just graduated. You know me.
2018 as well.
2016.
Yeah, Rosie and Julia. Yeah, so we're hoping you guys enjoy our music tonight.
Morning sun, I am a bird wearing a brown polyester shirt. You want a Coke, maybe some fries. The roast beef combo's only $9.95. Everybody knows it hurts to grow up. Everybody does. So weird to be back here. Let me tell you what, the years go on and we're still fighting and we're still fighting and you'll try and try and one day you'll fly away from me. And it was these sunny days of rain. I knew you'd feel the same things. Everybody knows it hurts to grow up. Everybody does. It's so weird to be back here. Let me tell you what, the years go on and we're still fighting and we're still fighting and oh, we're still fighting and we're still fighting and you're so much like me. I'm sorry.
This next song is called Everybody Wants to Rule the World, originally by Tears for Fears. But if you're parents, I think you can guess why we chose this song. Yeah, cool.
Welcome to your life. There's no turning back. Even while we sleep, we will find you acting on your best behavior. Turn your back on Mother Nature. Everybody wants to rule. It's my own design. It's my own remorse. Help me to decide. Help me make the most of freedom and of pleasure. Nothing ever lasts forever. Everybody wants to rule. There's a room where the light won't find you, holding hands while the walls come tumbling down. When they do, I'll be right behind you. So glad we've almost made it. So sad they had to fade it. Everybody wants to rule.
Make the most of freedom and pleasure. All I know is take care of each other. An open door, a seat at the table. There's enough to go around. Make the most of freedom and pleasure. if you've seen Mary Poppins, you'll know this song.
Do you ever lie awake at night, just between the dark and the morning light, searching for the things you used to know, looking for the place where the lost things go? Do you ever dream or reminisce, wondering where to find what you truly miss? Well, maybe all those things that you love so are waiting in the place where the lost things go. Memories you've shared, gone for good you feared, they're all around you still, though they've disappeared. Nothing's really left or lost without a trace. Nothing's gone forever, only out of place. So maybe now the dish and my best spoon are playing hide and seek just behind the moon, waiting there until it's time to show. Spring is like that now, far beneath the snow, hiding in the place where the lost things go. Time to close your eyes so sleep can come around. For when you dream, you'll find all that's lost is found. Maybe on the moon, or maybe somewhere new. Maybe all you're missing lives inside of you. So when you need a touch and loving gaze, gone but not forgotten is the perfect phrase. Smiling from the star that she makes grow. Trust she's always there, watching as you grow. Find her in the place where the lost things go.
This last song, we hope to be an encouragement to you. I think this message is the message that as parents, we all hope to share with our children, and as children, we hope to hear from our parents.
It's just the weight of the world. Though your heart's heavy, I will lift it for you. Don't give up, because you want to be heard. If silence keeps you, I will lift it for you. Everybody wants to be understood. Well, I can hear you. Everybody wants to be loved. Well, don't give up, because you are loved. Don't give up. It's just the hurt that you hide. Though you're lost inside, I'll be there to find you. Don't give up, because you want to burn bright. If darkness blinds you, I will shine to guide you. Everybody wants to be understood. Well, I can hear you. Everybody wants to be loved. Well, don't give up, because you are and don't give up. It's just the weight of the You are loved, and don't give up.
Thank you, Kayla, and everyone. The Ben Folds song took me back to 2004, really like email moment in my life. So that was thank you for all the anxiety that flooded me at that moment. Well, welcome to our Ruskin Village Open Forum on parenting on the hardest days, loving, correcting, nourishing my kids when I'm angry and defeated. I've at least met everyone, I believe. I'm Kyle. I'm the pastor here. Make this angle rightly. At the church that meets here on Sundays. I'll do this. Sound? All right. Kayla always arranges things differently than I do with the mic. After I talk, we'll have a Q&A, and there's a text message that you can do, but it's also, you can come down and ask here, and I think it's intimate enough. We can talk openly if you would like, but we can do it however you would like. I want to start by undermining my credibility. I'm a father. I'm a pastor. I'm not a child therapist, family therapist. I have 3 sons, 10, 7, and 5. The oldest was born in Uganda. We adopted him when he was 14 months old. The second one was born here in Chicago on the south side. We adopted him when he was a week old. And the youngest was born to us the old-fashioned way, which was a surprise to us. So I love my kids and they love me, but some days being their father overwhelms me, and it exposes the darkest parts of my heart, unlike anything else that I do. Let me give you just one example, a few examples. Here's one from just this past. I was trying to think, what should I mention? But here's just a recent one. Here's from this past weekend. The boys were introduced to the video game Minecraft at a friend's place. The friend happens to be here. We had a great time. Our hosts were wonderful. And we talked about getting Minecraft to play at home. We usually try to limit their technology use, but we were open to indulging them this time because the game is creative and collaborative, or at least it can be. But for one of our boys, the whole rest of the day, and the morning of the next day, he refused to accept the idea that he would have to wait until he could play Minecraft the next time. So he was rude and mean and grumpy and disobedient. And on Sunday morning, he and I had to get to church separately from the rest of the family because he wanted to play Minecraft and not go to church. Minecraft was more fun than going to church, which maybe is true. But here's how I responded. On two occasions, on Saturday night and Sunday morning, I exploded on him. Not physically, but verbally. I didn't say anything cruel or demeaning as far as I can remember, but I was yelling. I was accusing, I was condemning and storming out of the room, that kind of thing. Here's another example. A few years ago with another son, my memory is hazy, and I don't remember what happened, but I'm pretty sure that I called him a stupendous jackass. I'm a pastor who's called his own son a stupendous jackass. I'm not a parenting expert. I'm a parent who has some very hard days, and on some of those days, plenty of those days, I really blow it. So now that I've thoroughly undermined my credibility to speak about parenting, here goes. And my aim is to say something that if you struggle like me, that there's hope. There's no easy formula, but there is hope that can anchor you when you have those hard days. And some of you are about to be parents. Some of you it's a window into parenting. But here's an anchor for hope. 3 points for your hardest days. What's happening to you, what's happening in you, and what you need. So first of all, what's happening to you? What exists outside of yourself that is creating these hard days? Well, the obvious answer is that your child is happening to you. Your children are happening to you. And you need to understand why your children are as difficult as they can be sometimes. One reason is just biological. It's neurological. Daniel Siegel, a psychiatrist, and Tina Bryson, a psychotherapist, have a helpful book called No Drama Discipline, which I'll mention later. But they talk about how children's brains are still developing and how that neurological reality affects their emotions, their blow-ups. Now, they say that our kids don't usually lash out at us because they're simply rude or because we're failures as parents. They usually lash out because they don't yet have the capacity to regulate their emotional states and control their impulses. They can't help it in some sense because of their brains. And there's even a silver lining, they say, in these blow-ups, because when they act out against you, unlike they do for other people, it's because they trust you, that you're a safe person for them to fall apart on. So part of the reason that your children are difficult is because their brains are still developing. There are also things going on inside of your brain, too. The realities of parenthood affect your brain. Researchers at Queen's University in Ontario have discovered that sleep deprivation can impair your judgment just as much as being legally drunk. So if you have hard days that are caused by not sleeping, because that's what babies do, they don't sleep when you want them to, it can feel like you're going crazy. And in some sense, you are. Your brain is affected by not getting enough sleep. You might have also heard that scientists have learned that our brains aren't really that good at multitasking or even emotional task switching. So our brains aren't wired to do that well. But with kids, especially if you work from home, there are constant interruptions, constant emotional changes of direction, which messes with your brain and which can make you feel guilty because you're always having to switch from one task to the next, and you always feel like you're neglecting something when you're task switching. So there are things happening to you in your brain, in your kids' brains, but there's also some things about other things about your kids that are happening to you. Flannery O'Connor said, "Stories of pious children tend to be false." Here's an anonymous poem about young kids called "The Child's Law of Adverse Possession." If I like it, it's mine. If it's in my hand, it's mine. If I can take it from you, it's mine. If I had it a little while ago, it's mine. If it's mine, it must never appear to be yours in any way. If I'm doing or building something, all the pieces are mine. If it looks just like mine, it's mine. If I saw it first, it's mine. If you're playing with something and put it down, it automatically becomes mine. If it's broken, it's yours. Human beings, according to the Christian tradition, are sinners, and young human beings are just as much as sinners as grown-up human beings. And to be sinners means that we believe certain lies about ourselves. Paul Tripp, a Christian counselor, talks about how every person innately believes two lies. One is that I have autonomy. So he says that it is the belief that my life belongs to me and that I should be able to do whatever I want with my life to make me happy. That's autonomy. The other lie is self-sufficiency. So I have everything I need. That's what that says. So no one can tell me what to do, and I don't need anyone else anyway. And everyone believes that innately, but for kids, this lie is put to the test every day. They think they're autonomous, but actually they're under your authority. That's good. And they think they don't need you, but actually they do need you. And they push against those realities because of that lie. So your children are happening to you, and the reason that can be really hard is because both what's going on in their brains, in your brain, but also in their hearts. But something else is happening to you. There are pressures on you from our culture that can make hard situations with your kids even harder. I'm going to call these pressures cultural idols. Maybe you think of an idol as, like you think of the beginning scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark, where, the little stone statue in that ancient temple. An idol is more than that, really. An idol is something that you look to besides God for your security, your significance, your health, or your hope or your happiness, maybe your health too. And you can have personal idols like that, but cultures can have idols too. And because it's part of the culture, you may not notice them, but they're real, and they might be making things even harder for you. Here are three cultural idols: performance, independence, and identity. The performance idol says that unless your kids perform well, they can't be happy or fulfilled, and neither can you. George Parker has recently written in The Atlantic about trying to navigate the New York City public school system, or this is the school system as a whole, it's an intensely competitive meritocracy. Everyone's competing to get into the best schools. And maybe Chicago isn't quite as crazy as New York, but around here it's probably not that far off. Your parents are having to figure out which school to go to. There's lotteries, all that, unless you're weird homeschoolers like we are. But here's what Parker's elementary age daughter said as she was preparing to take tests to get into middle school. She said, "If you fail a math test, you fail 7th grade. If you fail 7th grade, you fail middle school. If you fail middle school, you fail high school. If you fail high school, you fail college. If you fail college, you fail life." A kid said that. That's an idol that says that life is not worth living. That life is not worth living unless you're always successful. What happened there? You're always successful and you beat everyone else. Jennifer Rabner, which is not her real name, wrote an article called "Why Don't I Like My Child?" The issue was that her daughter had a hormone growth deficiency, which was stunting her emotional and her intellectual, her social development. But it was years before she was diagnosed with it. And Radner said that a mom is never, ever supposed to admit this, but here goes. I've never liked my child. As you can probably imagine, I feel guilty that I was basically repelled by my own child. Who wouldn't? But honestly, the guilt was overshadowed by a colossal sense of disappointment. This just wasn't the magic mother-daughter bond that every book I read, every movie I saw, and every family I'd ever met had led me to expect. So something's wrong with my kid, and I can't handle it. That's performance idolatry. Where I'm from, it was athletic performance, which is where that idol really works. So Lane Tech's football stadium looks tiny to me. That's just where I'm from, is athletic performance. And so every time your child doesn't succeed because of this idol, it can make something that maybe isn't that big of a deal into this cataclysmic tragedy. Here's another cultural idol, independence. Irma Bombach has a line in a novel that says, "I have not been alone in the bathroom since October." When you become a parent, you lose independence. But culturally, we think that independence is necessary for happiness. Jennifer Senior, in her book, All Joy and No Fun, says that in contrast to earlier generations, when children just arrived without choice when you got married, today, she says, adults often view children as one of life's crowning achievements, and they approach child rearing with the same bold sense of independence and individuality that they would any other ambitious life project, spacing children apart according to their own needs and raising them according to their individual child rearing philosophies. So it's likely that if you live, if you're a parent, if you live 10 years or more as a free adult, and then you make a conscious decision to become a parent with the same independence mindset, and then the realities of parenthood completely throw that independence out of the water, and it can overwhelm you. Senior says, if this is how you conceive of liberty as freedom from obligation, then the transition to parenthood is a dizzying shock. Most Americans are free to choose or change spouses, and the middle class has at least a modicum of freedom to choose or change careers. But we can never choose or change our children. They are the last binding obligation in a culture that asks for almost no other permanent commitments at all. It's independence idolatry, and then we find out that parenting means losing our independence. That makes for some hard days. One more idol, identity. Parenting is not just what I do, but it's who I am. And if it's who I am, then I have to be perfect. Here's Jennifer Senior again. This is how the idol is particularly hard on women. It says that it was a woman in Minnesota who clarified this for me. She pointed out that her mother called herself a housewife. She, on the other hand, called herself a stay-at-home mom. The change in nomenclature reflects the shift in cultural emphasis. The pressures on women have gone from keeping an immaculate house to being an irreproachable mom. So that's who you are. That's your identity. You're a mom, and every public meltdown, every bad grade, every emotional fracture says something about who you are. And that can make for some really hard days. So that's what's happening to you. Your kids are happening to you. Your brain is happening to you. These cultural idols are happening to you. But second, what's happening in you? All those things you can't control. You can't single-handedly change parenting culture. You can't change your kid's brain. You can't change how sleep deprivation affects you. Those things are happening to you. They're coming at you. But there are also things happening in you, not just in your brain, but in your heart too. And I'm talking about like the blood pumping organ here. I mean, the heart, according to Jesus, is the real source of everything that I do and I say and I feel, the good and the bad. The New Testament writer James says, he asks, what causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? So when I called my son a stupendous jackass, it wasn't that I was right. It was that there was something going on in my heart, something happening with my passions, my desires, what I want. That's where those words came from. Let me give you an illustration that I got from a counselor that I found helpful. Here's a water bottle, and watch what happens. Be careful here. Yeah, I'll do it this way. Watch what happens. I don't know whose jacket that is, sorry. I hit it, and water splashed out on the floor. And don't worry, I'll try to clean it up later. But why is there water on the floor? Oh, because I hit it, right? Okay. Why is there not LaCroix on the floor? Because there's no LaCroix in the bottle. The reason there's water on the floor is because there was water in the bottle when it got hit. And this is how the Bible says that our hearts work. So things come at us, things happen to us, and it makes something come out. What comes at me doesn't produce what's in me, it brings it out. So a baby keeps me up all night. My kid gets into a fight with another kid at the playground. My kid tests in the bottom 10% of his peer group. My kids shut up in a room every day with their phone, refusing to talk to me. If I respond to those things with compassion and patient discipline and relentlessly pursuing my kid's heart and doing what's best for my kid rather than what is easy and convenient or desirable for me, that's because that good stuff was already there. The situation brought it out. It brought out my compassion and my pursuit. But if I respond with yelling, with condemnation, with self-righteous condemnation, with becoming emotionally distant, with stupendous jackass, it's because that stuff was already in there. And it might mean that what's in my heart is that I'm clinging to an idol. I'm looking for my identity in my children. And I need them to be perfect. And I need you, other people, to validate me in my performance. And when that doesn't happen, when this happens, my idol-worshiping heart is exposed. Julie Howe is an adoptive mom and a family counselor, and she has a really helpful article called Reflections on Parenting a Difficult Child. And she says, some of the most burdensome moments for a parent are when it is clear to those around you that your child is defiant or difficult. When family problems are out in public, you become more self-conscious. What does it say about me as a parent? Am I doing something wrong? And now that other people know, what are they thinking? Maybe they assume your child's behavior is a result of inadequate parenting or something else amiss in your home. You feel marked and even judged by your child's personal struggles. And she says, when you're feeling this way, you need to ask questions about your heart. And here's some questions. What agenda is dictating my parenting? Do I care too much for my reputation or my own comfort? Do I desire a well-behaved child who causes me few problems or struggles? Do I want a child who makes me look good, who is productive, smart, and kind? Am I embittered because I have invested myself in this child and see no results? Paul Tripp, who I mentioned earlier, talks about how exhausting and discouraging it is when our hearts attach themselves to these idols. This is a longer quote, so bear with me, but I find it really helpful. He says, parents, this is an exhausting and discouraging way to live. It is exhausting to need little, immature sinners to perform well in order to feel good about yourself and your life. It's exhausting to chase success after success, never being fully satisfied. It's discouraging to feed off the love of someone too immature to give it to you faithfully. It's discouraging to personalize your children's failures as if they were intentionally plotting against you. It's exhausting to load your schedule with activity after activity until you have little free time left because you need your children to succeed. It's discouraging to have to face the sin and struggle of your children when you need near perfection to feel that it's been worth it. It's exhausting and discouraging to ask your kids to give you what they cannot give you, and for you to need so deeply what you have no power to produce. I'm going to say this in a way that I hope will get your attention. It just never works to ask your children to be your own saviors. So maybe when this happens, and I'm responding from the exhaustion and discouragement of believing lies and following idols in my heart. So what's happening to you? What's happening in you? One more thing. What you need. What you need on your hardest days of parenting is grace. I know that's what you'd expect me as a pastor to say, but let me flesh that out. You need grace from you, and you need grace for you. So first, you need grace from you. I'm thinking of here discipline, of correction. So the uncontroversial topic of disciplining your children. Margaret Mead, a name some of you might know, was a pioneering anthropologist. She worked, I think, in the South Pacific among tribal cultures. But in the 1940s, she compared American parenting philosophy to the tribal parenting philosophy she was researching. And the people she was researching in the jungle had deeply rooted traditions and life stage rhythms that they would pass down from one generation to the next. It didn't mean that parenting was easy for them, but at least you knew what to do because of this cultural wisdom passed down to you. But in America, and this is in the 40s she's saying this, but I think this is just as true, if not more now. And she says, in America, we find new schools of education, new schools of diet, new schools of human relations, sprung up like mushrooms, new, untried, rank like skunk cabbages in early spring. And we find serious, educated people following their dictates. In America, there is no fixed standard. There are only this year's babies. So, attachment parenting, free-range parenting, I don't know all the philosophies, but basically, whatever you're doing now, there's a good chance that there's some parenting expert out there, some PhD somewhere who thinks you're doing it all wrong. So you got this free market of parenting ideas competing for your allegiance. There's no inherited wisdom for you to draw from. But whatever you do, you still got the discipline, right? Your kid's staying up until 2 a.m. playing Fortnite. Or your kid pitches a fit in public because you said no to ice cream. You've got to deal with that. There's discipline. And that discipline needs to be formed by grace. Now, a grace-formed discipline does not mean that you don't deal with what you need to deal with. In the 6th Harry Potter book, which was not in the movie because the world is broken, but in the 6th book, Dumbledore comes to collect Harry from the Dursleys' house. And the Dursleys, if you know, I assume you know the story, they've treated Harry with almost criminal neglect and abuse his whole life. But they've spoiled their son, Dudley. They've hardly ever said no to anything he's ever wanted. And Dumbledore says, you've never treated Harry as a son. He has known nothing but neglect and often cruelty at your hands. The best that can be said is that he has at least escaped the appalling damage you have inflicted upon the unfortunate boy sitting between you. Dudley. So the lack of discipline and correction damaged Dudley. It was unloving. It warped him. So for discipline to be fundamentally gracious and merciful, it doesn't mean that it is foolishly permissive. But here's a little of what gracious discipline looks like. And I'm sure we can expand this list a lot more than what I'm going to say here. But gracious discipline, at least, is non-formulaic, empathetic, probing, and forgiving. It's non-formulaic. Julie Howe, who I mentioned earlier, says somewhere else that I notice in myself and in the parents I counsel the tendency to take what we read or hear and try to squeeze our families into a one-size-fits-all approach to our children. Do these specific things and your children and your family will function well. But all too often we feel defeated, frustrated, and stuck when it seems that we've followed the rules and yet our children still struggle, appear unresponsive, or have challenging behaviors. In my case, one of my kids can just talk it out with me. He might yell at me for an hour, but eventually he calms down and we talk through it. Another son is not good at all at articulating what's wrong. He needs a lot of creative interaction. Something we've done a few times recently is to play the Skittles game, which is where that if he answers my questions about how he's feeling and why he's upset, then he gets a Skittle. But if he doesn't answer, I get the Skittle. And he seems to enjoy it. He'll open up to me that way, and I'll give him plenty of easy questions, so he always gets more Skittles than I do. The third son needs a little more firm attention sometimes. and he needs time alone in his room, and then then we can reconnect and talk about what's wrong and where to go from there. But because none of my 3 sons are biologically related to each other, I'm very sensitive to the fact that one method is not going to work for all 3 of them. And the reason that this is gracious is because I'm taking seriously the uniqueness of each child, which models, in just a little way, how God treats me. God is my Father, and He does not deal with me formulaically. He meets me in my unique weaknesses. So instead of, here's this formula that I will do, and I expect clear results, Julie Howe asks, is what I'm doing for this particular child in this particular moment, is it loving, consistent, and wise? It's not formulaic. So it's loving, consistent, and wise. There's a lot of room there. Graceful discipline is also empathetic and probing. 2 particular books on discipline have helped me. No Drama Discipline by Siegel and Bryson, which I mentioned earlier, and The Explosive Child by Ross Greene, who was at Harvard Medical School for 20 years. I don't know the religious commitments of any of those authors. I don't think any of them are Christians. But what I appreciate about their approaches is that they use the concept of grace, even if they don't use the word. For No Drama Discipline, their phrase is connect and redirect. So when my child's doing something that needs correction, I want to first try to connect with my child emotionally. I want to empathize with them. I want to acknowledge their emotions. I want to listen. And then redirect into teaching, which gets into probing. Why was my child acting this way? What fears or desires are under the surface? I need to try to understand that. And then as I've better understood what's really going on, redirecting means repairing what needs to be repaired. The Explosive Child is similar. There's empathizing with how your child's feeling, and there's talking about why the issue is important, why it's a problem. So if there's a meltdown over ice cream or a problem with a smartphone, I need to communicate why this is a problem, why I'm concerned about it. But then there's a collaborative engagement on what the consequences should be, or what to do next, or what to do if this kind of thing happens again. And for both of those approaches, which make no claims at all to being perfect, which is why I appreciate them, the authors admit to their own failures as parents. But what I appreciate about them is that they recognize that what's going on with my kids is that they're not just being bad. They're not just opposing me. They're also struggling with something. Here's what Paul Tripp says on this. All of the resistance that you have to deal with, all of the fussing and complaining, all of the laziness and irresponsibility, all of the sibling squabbles, and all of the foolish choices are the fruit of something deeper. If you don't understand that deeper thing, you will settle for surface victories and surface solutions that don't really lead to lasting change. So grace-based discipline is non-formulaic, empathetic, probing, and it's forgiving. Yes, there need to be appropriate consequences, and there's no easy formula for figuring out what those consequences should be. But however I handle it, it's not punishment to satisfy my sense of justice. Grace means forgiveness. It means that I can forgive my kids when they publicly humiliate me, when they disappoint me, when they hurt me so deeply. I can show them grace. I can forgive. Just like they can forgive me. Grace and forgiveness in a family don't need to go in just one direction. Siegel and Bryson say that there's a silver lining is a good thing when you do totally blow it in your response to the situation. They say that your children get to see you model how to apologize and make things right. They experience that when there is conflict and argument, there can be repair and things become good again. In other words, your humility, your acknowledgement of your mistakes, that the way that you see your kids' forgiveness will go a long way for them to learn how to humbly acknowledge their mistakes and for them to seek forgiveness. I've mentioned a few times where I've failed in my parenting, when I've flipped my lid. Let me mention one time where I think I did okay. I don't always blow it. Last winter, we had one of our sons in a Park District basketball league. He was having fun at first, but then he started to refuse to go. And he had done similar things with other activities. He had been in a great gymnastics program, then he quit wanting to go. We spent so much energy trying to get him just out the door and into the gymnastics center until he just ran out of gas and threw in the towel on gymnastics. He did the same thing with an arts and crafts program, and now it was basketball. And remember, I've inherited my cultural idol of athletic performance, so basketball was my sport growing up. So this one night, he's refusing to get in the car to go to basketball. I'm getting angry, and I'm remembering how we've been here before, and I'm about to launch into a righteous rant against him. You know, you always do this. You never finish what you start. You never do anything you don't want to do. You think you're the only person that matters. And as I'm preparing the speech, I'm planning out the consequences. You know, if you don't get in the car now, you can forget about playing with your friends for the rest of the week, or whatever it was in my head. I'm about to make that angry speech, but then I stop. I'll chalk it up to God intervening with mercy on me in that moment, but I stop, and I lower my voice, and I sit him on my lap, and I put my arms around him, and I say, I know there's something about basketball that you're afraid of, and that's okay. I get afraid of things too. Could you tell me what you're afraid of? And he said, I'm afraid that there's someone who's going to boo me if I mess up. That blew me away because he's never that articulate with how he's feeling usually, but it also blew me away because I had no idea how deep his fear went. He described this booer as the person he's afraid of as, well, in a couple of ways, as someone up in the bleachers, kind of out in the corner where in a corner, or someone who's standing behind him, kind of off to the back, but someone who he couldn't see, just a voice booing him. And these are 4, 5, and 6-year-olds in this league, and no one's booing anybody, but that's what he was afraid of. That's why he didn't want to go to basketball. He had this existential fear of condemnation and rejection was booing him. So we talked through it, and I shared my own fears, and we talked about how God helps us when we're afraid, that we prayed, and that was it. We didn't go back to basketball, and that's okay. But I think for once I handled it well. There was grace from me to help me understand this struggling person. So what you need is grace from you for your kids when you discipline. But you also need grace for you. I haven't really talked about what the Bible says about parenting, because the truth is that the Bible doesn't give a how-to program for parenting. It resists a formulaic approach. But I think the best place in the Bible that shows how God cares for families, and this is a point that Russell Moore makes in his book, The Storm-Tossed Family. But the best snapshot into God's views on family is when Jesus is on the cross. He's being slowly executed, and his mother and the disciple John are there at the cross. And it says, when Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour, the disciple took her to his own home. So he's dying on the cross, and he facilitates an adoption. He's being tortured and killed, and he creates a new family right there. That's what families mean to him. And because that's what families mean to him, that means that he's always gracious to you in your parenting. Grace is always past, present, and future. So it's past. My long list of parenting failures, my parenting sins, they have somewhere to go, to the cross. Everything I've done wrong, including my sins as a parent, are forgiven by Jesus dying for me and when I trust in his death for me. And that existential grace and forgiveness frees me to repair what I break in my family. Put it another way, that vertical grace for me frees me for horizontal relational grace and restoration in my family. It's past grace. It's also future grace. Grace makes me into what I am not yet. My failures now don't have to be a sneak preview into my failures later. There's future grace. There's also present grace. It's grace that meets me exactly where I am right now, in my weaknesses, in my children's weaknesses. Another way to say that is that parenting well actually is too hard for me. And yet God doesn't leave me alone. Here's Paul Tripp again. I remember sitting on my bed in my dark bedroom late one night after having a horrible conversation with my son where I had lost it and said all the things that I told myself I wouldn't say. In the dark, I felt so defeated, so alone, and so overwhelmed. I remember mumbling to myself and to the Lord, I just can't do this anymore. It's just too hard. And then in that moment, he realized that God's call in his life to be a father was beyond his natural abilities, and that God wasn't calling him to do it on his own. In other words, I can't do this on my own. A married couple can't do it on their own. And when I fail, when I try to do it on my own. But I'm not actually alone. There's present grace for me now. And one of the ways this present grace operates is by giving me a way out of my idols. I'm defeated because I've looked for my identity in my children, and they can't measure up to that. But God's present grace gives me a new identity. It gives me an identity, not as a parent, but as a child of my Father. And it's a new identity that frees my children from having to be my saviors. And it allows them to be what they actually are, gifts. And it's a new identity that frees my children from being possessions in my own kingdom, where they have to obey me and perform perfectly in my kingdom. And it lets them belong where they actually belong, to God. It's a losing battle here in his kingdom. This feels weird, doesn't it? There we go. I'll take the water bottle off for the weight. So I need grace on the hardest days to believe that. And there will always be grace for me on those days, and for you too. So that's what's happening to you, what's happening in you, and what you need on the hardest days with grace. I've gone on long enough. I'd love to hear your questions. You can text anonymously. I don't know if we have a number. There it is, available. But also, we're intimate enough here that I welcome you also to come to the mic here and ask them. If I haven't discredited myself enough already, the Q&A is where I really get to expose myself. But still, I'd love to talk to you as one struggling parent to another. So, what are your questions? What are you struggling with?
We had a couple questions texted in so far. Kyle, here's one of them. It says, thoughts on counseling. When should you consider it, or for your child or for yourself when things are difficult?
When should you consider for your child or yourself when things are difficult? I think for your child, I think when you are, okay, well, open disclosure. So one of our kids has gone through counseling. So I'll say what we did. The reason we started counseling for him was because he had got to the point where his struggles, his fears came out in physical violence. And so we didn't know what to do. We were unable to do it. It was kind of scary. And the reason I resisted it as long as I did was because an idol, I don't want to be the parent who needs their kids to take counseling, right? That was, but that was unloving, right? I was looking out for myself, my own reputation, and not looking out for what's best for my child. So that's why, if maybe that's the situation. If there are, if your child has particular disabilities, if there are biological things that are going on that are causing issues that are beyond, if there are special needs that are going on, I think that is. That there are more challenges on you there than there are other people. I think that could be an opportunity. And honestly, if you're struggling and you're not knowing where to go, I think that's always a green light to go to consider counseling. When should you consider counseling? Again, I think, well, if you're resisting the idea, if you think you need it, but you're resisting the idea because you don't want to be one of those people, I want to say that's you got an idol working there, and you should put it away. I say if you are feeling hopeless and that hopelessness is not going away, if you are feeling if you think there are things that are like depression, if there are things, if there are deeper things than you're able to understand or to deal with on your own, I think that's good for counseling. So I know that's general ideas, but at the very least, don't let your own pride stop you from doing what you need to do. Yeah.
We have a few other questions that have been texted, but we'll, if anyone's got a question, you can just step on up and we'll address it. But another question here is, how cognizant are you, both you and your wife Toria, in regards to showing patience towards each other's parenting struggles? What helps you grow in this category?
So patience towards each other as a married couple.
Yes, I believe so, yep.
Well, I'm always patient. She's never really patient. So how cognizant? Wait, say it one more time, just so I get the question.
How cognizant are you both, you and Toria, in regards to showing patience towards each other's struggles or parenting struggles? What helps you grow in this category?
Okay, so I'll tell you when I fail. All right, I fail when I am. I'm watching her deal with it, and it's not getting dealt with in a way that's prompt, in the way things aren't peaceful. But again, what's going on is that I want my comfort, I want my peace, and I want someone else to deal with it. And when I'm being distracted now, and I'm emotional task switching, and it's not happening. And so in those moments when I am kind of operating in my own kingdom of the way I want things to be, I can be very impatient. I don't know what she would say about me, but I think it's usually the most helpful times. Maybe I don't know what she would say. Is the conversations after the fact, where there's kind of the debrief of what happened, what went wrong, why did we respond the way that we did, what could we do better next time. I think like in the moment there can be a lot of chaos and impatience, frustration. I think it's after, both in marriage and for kids. It's once things settle down afterwards where the real grace happens, I think. Yeah.
That might be added to your final point there, grace towards your kids, yourself, but yeah, your spouse, I suppose. Another question that's been sent in here is, you spoke of in your first point about the context that we're in, the idols in our culture about parenting. So how can we become aware of how our context is shaping us regards to our parenting?
I would say it's hard because, like, the fish doesn't see the water that it swims in, right? Or how the expression goes. So the fish doesn't notice the water. So we don't notice the culture where it's just part of us. I'd say at any point where you're doing comparisons with other families, other kids, how emotionally, academically, I think that's so I'm viewing my family through the prism of how these other families look. I think that's one place. I think if you have inherited something from your parents, if there is an if your parents or your community has if these are the way things are done, these are the expectations, and then you are bringing that to your family. I think that's another place. Just be mindful of that your background informs that. Those are the two things that come to mind off the bat. If you know people from other cultures and how their families work, they look different. They could see how your family's different too. That's not a great answer, but that's, I think, yeah.
Feel free to, if you have a follow-up question to anything that Kyle said. So we'll start with here, and then we'll come to you. Go ahead.
So you said, like, what have you inherited? And I think one of the worldly views is
Yeah, Nick's coming to fix the. Yeah.
We'll put the music stand up here too. That's real short.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the worldly views that we've inherited is like, what is success? And like that's, you graduate college and you're successful in the world. And I try to be flexible with like, what does that look like for success? But I'm trying to get my 9-year-old to like own his performance. Like, that it's great if I think you're doing well in school, but you have to own your own destiny, whatever that is. But I have a hard time like connecting, like, why should he care as a Christian? Why? Because I default to like, well, if you don't do well in school, then you're not going to do well in the world.
Yeah. So so as the biggest thing as a Christian, what you want him to do is you want to raise him in the discipline and admonition of the Lord, right? So you want him to, your kids can fail everything, and yet if they trust Christ, if they're following Christ, that is a standard by which God sees success. Family, like even then, the word I don't like using the word success in that. So that becomes primary. I think there is a place for being in the place that God has, being faithful in the place that God has called me to be, which as a child is as a student. So there is a sense in if I need to be faithful in the place I am, and maybe that includes a part of owning my schoolwork. So maybe that's one way to get at the why, and maybe as you have these deal with this issue, I'd say I'd encourage to play the long game. So this is not a one conversation, and none of these things are kind of one conversation. This is an unending conversation on it. So that's, I think I need to mull that over more. We'll talk later. But that's yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. Go ahead. It'd be great if you wouldn't mind. Thanks.
I'm not a parent, but this has been so interesting to learn from everything. I'm just like, wow. So one thing I had a question about, to your point of idolatry, even connecting your other point with your son, and it seemed like anger was a big pop-up of when like an idol was kind of toppling down, or like used the language of like, I don't know. So would you make a connection between anger or the things you get most frustrated with being able to pinpoint idols as Americans? Is that a good indicator for the fish swimming in the water?
Yeah. And you're talking about like when I'm angry, right?
Like when when we're most angry or frustrated.
Yeah. I'd say anger is one of them. I'd say fear is another one. Despair. Honestly, any kind of negative emotion could be a window into my idol. So if I'm if I'm kind of crippled with anxiety and I'm afraid of we'll say money. We'll say I'm envisioning scenarios where where the economy crashes and I'm living on the streets. Like I'm playing out these fantasies in my head. I'm worried about that. That is probably indicative of some type of comfort idol or safety idol. So that's fear. Yeah, I think negative emotions in general are or positive emotions that go for unhealthy things or in too large of amounts for the wrong thing or for actually I'm tying myself in knots here. So I can enjoy cooking. I don't. I could, right? I could enjoy cooking and take real pleasure in it. But I can also become obsessive and spending money I don't have. Just creating this world of culinary excellence for the sake of people applauding me, and I can do something I can enjoy in the wrong way too. It's not just when things happen the wrong way and I react badly. I can also go the other way too. Anyway, yeah. So my emotions are good keys with idolatry. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. And I like your voice too, by the way. When you sing, I like your voice. Yeah. It's not like Josh Groban. No.
These are great questions. A quick note, if you did text in a question and you received an invitation to join us for an event on March 21st, sorry you missed it. Apologize about that auto response. That's our bad for that. But we are receiving the text.
What was March 21st?
Another event we were hosted, Meet God.
Meet God, okay.
Yes,
No,
yes,
no.
sir. So here's another question that was texted in. It says, thanks for the talk. What would you say to someone who wonders if having kids was the right decision in the first place?
Who wants to own that one? That I understand why you feel that way. Or I can, without knowing the details, I understand how hard it is. And that there are, because of how hard it is, because of my heart, because of those idols, I can envision my life before kids, which was very nice and peaceful, and now it's not. So like I even think of my happiest years where we were just married. I was a grad student. We had all this free time and extra money. Like it was a really good time. And so there are some days where I do find myself like remembering in a fantasy kind of way. So I'll say is like, if you feel that way, don't feel guilty. Or don't beat yourself up. But ask yourself, or tell this person, why do you feel this way? Is it because you don't have time to yourself? Is it because you feel embarrassed in public? Is it because you're not sleeping? Ask yourself why, and wrestle through what's going on there. Yeah, and remember, your children, they don't belong to you; they're a gift, and I think that can free you a bit from those moments, or they help you and push you in the right direction. Those moments of wondering.
That's good. Another question here that's been texted in: how do you connect with your spouse when parenting is hard, or when you disagree on what to do with your kids?
The first question: how to connect them when parenting is hard? I think. Like I said before, it's the conversations after the fact are I think some of the most helpful ones, and maybe I'll tie those two together. For both spouses, so it's not just like an idols in your heart. For both spouses, there are idols, and they may not be the same. They may be the same ones working out different ways. They may be different things, and so each person might be coming to the way to handle the situations with the way of, well, this is how things are done. This is how it should be done, and you are wrong to do it your way, and that creates tension. So if that's what if that's like an issue on the table, I'd say for both people to ask, okay, where are my views coming from? Am I saying this because this is what I've inherited? Is this a cultural tradition that this is a family pattern? If so, that doesn't mean it's necessarily the right thing. Or is it is one person reacting one way because there's a fear at play? Like so one person is being very harsh, the other one's being very permissive. Does the harsh person is the harsh person afraid of what people think? Is the permissive person afraid of being what their parents were and how too harsh? Those things are going on. So for each spouse, you have these conversations where you're asking not it's not just who's right, but why do we each feel the way that we do, and then maybe there's a place, there's a direction in the middle to work to.
Yeah, Laura, please.
So I guess I have less a question and more an observation, but maybe you can speak to this as well. As I think one fear that has often gripped me in the last year is how my flawed parenting is damaging my children. And so in the process of receiving and understanding God's grace for me in deeper ways, I also am aware that this is a process that takes time. And in the meantime, I still have to live with my children, and my children still have to live with me, and are still experiencing, the brunt of my anger or my grumpiness or my displeasure when it is not merciful or gracious. And so, I'm concerned for their well-being in the long run, given that they have me as a very flawed parent. And so, as a Christian, I believe in God's grace for me, and by extension, I believe in God's grace for my children as well, right? And if my children are not my savior, the reverse is also true, that I am not my children's savior. But I do still experience the fear of damaging them irrevocably.
Well, so I'll make a few comments or responses to your comment. One is that I have those same thoughts myself. So on those stupendous jackass comments or my explosions, later I think, have I just put a barrier there that it's going to be hard for me to cross again? So I feel the same way. Something I'd say is that, of course you're flawed. You have no choice but to make mistakes. You will never not be angry at times or grumpy or whatever. So that you have weaknesses. You're a sinner. That's who you. That's not the whole picture of you, but that's part of you. And so that this is an acknowledgement that this is there is no way around this in this life. The third thing I'd say is that I think that when you do fail, and then later, even it could be another day, and then another day, and you go, you're removed from whatever it was that made you angry or whatever, and you've grappled with grace in that intervening time, and you go back to your kids and you ask their forgiveness and you reconnect with them there. I think that will be more helpful in the long term than you being perfect at every point. you're teaching them the gospel there. You're teaching them that you're a sinner, so are they. There's forgiveness. Jesus forgives us. We forgive each other. I think your humility when you fail will have more long-term good than your failures will have long-term bad. And I hope that's the same for me too.
Well, we are out of time tonight. We want to thank you all for making the time to come out and join us this evening. Thank you for the musicians who led us in some songs earlier. And we always invite you to come and join us on a Sunday morning here at Holy Trinity. We gather here at 10:30 on Sundays. And starting in October 6th, we'll be beginning preview services for an evening service. So you're more than welcome to join us for that as well. Any last comments?
There's refreshments downstairs. Please stay and chat as you're able to.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.